and I was doing some, I left the ranch and was living in Weatherford, doing a little bit of work at home, and I was making some tack, headstalls and breast collars, and I needed to sew them, and I didn't have a machine. And so I made a deal with Price, and I would come over to his shop and use his sewing machine, and I did some tooling for him in exchange. Sewed up the stuff I needed to sew up, and he helped me out that way. And it was, I needed some help about that time. I had all this stuff ready to sew and didn't have no place to sew it. Um, okay. We didn't talk that much. There seemed to be a little bit of uh, problem there. He maybe thought that I was trying to intrude on his part of what he did. It didn't help anything when one of the girls that worked there in the shop kind of bragged on my work above his and wanted to know why he couldn't do something like that. So that didn't help our situation any as far as being friendly. Uh, but years later, our paths crossed again, and we got to know a little bit more, got a little bit more acquainted, and in fact, this is getting a little bit ahead of my story time, but I ended up trying to recruit him to come to a shop that I was working at the time. And he made a trip to the shop, flew up to Indiana, kind of liked what he saw, and he said, okay, he take some time to think about it, and before he could make up his mind, he had some health problems and he died. So we never did get to work together like I was hoping. Uh, I kept playing with leather while I was in the service. After I was discharged, we moved back to the Fort Worth area. We went out to Springtown, which was kind of northwest of Fort Worth. We rented a farm out there. We did some farming. We raised some cattle, and I did some plumbing in Springtown. But all the time I kept fooling with leather a little bit, and that's when I went to work for Wendy Ryan. We was living out there, and I got a chance to go to work for Wendy, and I started driving back into Fort Worth and working for Wendy, and that is really another story in itself. It was very educational. I enjoyed working for Wendy. He was a good guy. He was hard. He knew what he wanted, and I wouldn't say hard, but he pushed for what he thought was the best, and he wanted only the best. And some of the guys that worked in the shop didn't particularly like him and didn't like his ways, but he was always fair, and Wendy and I got along good. I enjoyed working for him. I thought it was time to get out of the shop, get outside a little bit, enjoy the little bit of spring weather. We turned a little bit cool today, but not quite as sunny as I'd hoped to be. I left the ranch and went to work for the Texas National Guard. I had belonged to the National Guard for 2 or 3 years, and they gave me a chance to go to work for them, and it was a pretty good increase in salary, and so I decided to do that. But I kept on doing leather work occasionally, and kept going around the saddle shops. About this time I met Benny Veach in his shop in Westland. That's a little bitty suburb west of Fort Worth. I met Benny, got to know him a little bit, and he was pretty free at talking about what to, how to build saddles, and he had some pretty different ideas. He was real strong into patterns. He made a lot of, every time he made a saddle, if it was a little bit different, then he made a set of patterns. And if he ever needed to build that type of saddle again, he went back and used those patterns. Benny was very good at that type of thing. He made some good patterns. Years later, I ended up buying that shop, not from Benny, but somebody that had had it after Benny. And I used a lot of those patterns. A lot of my styles and of the saddles that I build today stemmed from those patterns. It was a good learning experience where what little I got to be around Benny. After a while, the Texas National Guard got called up to active duty, and we went to Fort Polk, Louisiana. I got to meet some people down there. I did some leather work in my spare time, made some holsters, went down to Shreveport. We was in Fort Polk, and that was about a 30-minute drive from Shreveport, and I'd go down there, and there was a little saddle shop down there that would sew for me, and there was a young man in there that did the sewing, and got to know him a little bit. Really didn't